You didn't make me a plate? I asked. Erica turned slightly, the serving tongs still in her hand. I only ordered for family, she said, sweet as syrup. Then she went on, placing another perfectly seared steak in front of her cousin. Calvin didn't look at me, just kept cutting his meat, chewing slowly like he hadn't heard a thing. It wasn't new, the looks, the quiet exclusions, but this time it was louder, intentional. Everyone could see. I looked around the table, 12 guests, her parents, her aunt and uncle, that niece who never spoke more than 5 words to me, all with full plates, steak, roasted vegetables, French bread rolls wrapped in linen. Even the water glasses had lemon slices. My chair. No napkin, no water, no card with my name. I folded my hands in my lap. So I'm not family anymore? I said it quietly, not to spark a scene, just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating the insult. Erica let out a little laugh. Oh, Marissa, don't take everything so personally. Calvin wiped his mouth with his napkin, still not looking up. No dessert either, I assume? I asked. She raised an eyebrow. We only ordered 6 tarts. I nodded. That number included her niece and her father, not me. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I cut into the cold chicken I'd taken earlier when the buffet trays came out. It was dry, stringy, a placeholder of a meal. Across the table, someone said something about summer plans. Someone else laughed, but all I could hear was the soft clang of silverware and the sound of my son pretending I wasn't there. There was a time I used to host these dinners myself. Back then, the tables were mismatched, and the chairs wobbled a bit, but there was always room for everyone. Calvin would help set out the silverware, and I'd bake pies from scratch, always his favorite cherry with the lattice top. That was before Erica, before rules came into the picture. Now there's a seating chart, a caterer, a firm line between real family and whoever I've become. I used to bake for every school fundraiser they had. When Erica was pregnant, I dropped off meals twice a week, even when my own back was giving out. When they bought their first home, it was my $20,000 that sealed the down payment. They said they'd pay me back, of course. That conversation was 7 years ago. And the dogs, both of them, whenever they went away, I watched them, cleaned up the accidents, paid for their food without a word. One even needed surgery. I covered the difference when the vet bill came in higher than expected. But none of that earns you a name card or a glass of water, apparently. After dinner, I stayed behind to help fold the linens. No one asked me to. No one thanked me either. As I passed by the kitchen on the way to grab my coat, I heard Erica's voice, light and amused. She's lucky we still invite her. And then Calvin's reply, low and offhanded like a shrug. Next year we'll just rent the yard out instead. It wasn't meant for me to hear. That made it worse. I didn't make a sound. Just walked out to my car, turned the ignition, and sat there for a long minute as the porch light flicked off behind me. By the time I got home, I already knew I wasn't going to mention the evening to anyone. I just went straight to my file cabinet, opened the drawer, and slid the deed onto my desk. The land was mine. Every square foot beneath that house. The folder was heavier than I remembered. I laid it flat on the kitchen table and opened it slowly, like I was afraid the truth inside might sting more than I could handle. But it didn't sting. It steadied me. There it was, the parcel number, the county seal, my name in bold print across the top. The land was mine, not in theory, not in memory, on paper. Calvin and Erica's house might rise from its center, but every inch beneath their custom porch and designer garden beds belonged to me. I thought back to when they were searching for homes, frustrated with bidding wars and down payments. I had the lot unused for years, tucked behind the old orchard where Calvin used to play as a boy. He asked, "What if we just build here?" I'd nodded without hesitation. Of course, family helps family. We agreed they'd build. I'd help finance the loan, and once everything's settled, we'd transfer the title. We'll take care of the paperwork later, he said. I believed him. Last Christmas, I sat in my armchair with the transfer papers already printed, the pen in my hand. But something about the way Erica had skipped out on helping with dinner, or the way Calvin barely spoke to me while scrolling through his phone, it all made me pause. I told myself it wasn't the right time. Now I know it was something else. Intuition, maybe, or just years of silence finally pressing down. They had forgotten the land was borrowed, treated it like a gift already unwrapped, claimed, and theirs to reshape. I ran my hand over the page, then closed the folder and carried it to my desk. I wasn't angry, just clear. He knocked around 9:00 a.m. I hadn't expected him so early, but there he was on my porch with a cardboard drink tray and that careful smile he used when he wanted something to blow over. "Thought you might like a latte," he said, handing me the cup. Store-bought. No sugar, no note, just foam and formality. I stepped aside to let him in. He didn't sit, just hovered by the counter. "About yesterday," he started, rubbing the back of his neck. "I'm sure Erica didn't mean it that way." I nodded once, letting the words sit between us. I mean, she was tired. Hosting's a lot. You know how she gets when she's stressed. Still, I said nothing. "I told her it was over the line," he added too quickly. I looked at him then. "You didn't say anything at the table." He looked away, the air in the room tightening. I didn't want to make it worse. It was already tense. I just thought, let's not make a scene. I stirred the coffee, though I had no intention of drinking it. "You thought silence would keep the peace." He gave a small shrug, almost a child's gesture. "I didn't mean to hurt you." I nodded again. "But you didn't stop it either." His mouth opened, then closed. He looked at the floor like it might offer him an answer. Then he said, "I should go. Just try not to take it personally." "Okay." I walked him to the door. "Thanks for the coffee," I said. He smiled, relieved, and left, thinking that was the end of it. Once the door clicked shut, I carried the coffee to the sink and poured it out. Then I sat at my desk and opened the folder again. I started writing, not a note, not a message, a letter. Clear terms, a return of use, no room for misunderstanding. It was nearly dusk when Lynn knocked. I'd just finished folding laundry and thought she might need a cup of sugar or a casserole dish back. Instead, she stood there holding a covered plate. "Leftovers," she said. "From the thing on Saturday. Figured you might not have gotten much to eat." I took the dish, murmured a thank you, but her eyes lingered. "Rough dinner, huh?" she added. I blinked. "You were there?" Lynn nodded, almost sheepish. "Erica's mom invited me last minute, said it would be good for connections." She made air quotes like she wished she hadn't gone. I waited. She sighed. "I wasn't going to say anything, but I was inside when Erica was talking to her mom just before dessert came out." My hand tightened slightly on the dish. She said, "After this year, we can finally stop inviting her. It's embarrassing." Lynn's voice was soft, hesitant. I don't think she knew I was near the hallway. I nodded once. "Thank you for telling me." She touched my arm, gave me a look full of apology, and left without another word. I brought the dish into the kitchen, set it on the counter, and took a slow, steady breath. It hadn't been a slip, not a moment of poor taste or forgotten courtesy. It had been planned. I walked to the desk and opened the folder again, pulled out the letter I'd already written. Then I added a paragraph, clear and firm. The property was not a gift. The agreement had been informal and revocable. As of the date listed, all usage rights would be withdrawn. A 30-day notice. Any structures built would be addressed in mediation. I signed my name again, not with anger, just with finality. Then I made copies. One for them, one for the county, one for my lawyer. When I sealed the envelope this time, it felt like I'd finally drawn the line they kept pretending didn't exist. And this time I'd make sure it held. I dropped the letter in their mailbox myself. No stamp, no ceremony, just a white envelope tucked between catalogs and coupons. 30 days. That was what the notice said. 30 days to vacate the land. I didn't knock. I didn't ring the bell. I walked back to my car with steady steps and drove home without looking back. The first message came that evening. Then another. And another. I didn't reply. The texts were short at first. "Can we talk? What is this?" Then they grew longer. "You're really going to throw us out over a misunderstanding?" Still, I said nothing. On the second morning, I heard a knock at my door. Not polite, sharp, repeated. I opened it to find Calvin standing there, hair a mess, holding the letter in one hand like it had personally insulted him. "You can't be serious," he said. I didn't invite him in. "You're really going to kick us off the land? Over a dinner?" His voice rose, already defensive. "We've been living there for years, Mom. You helped us build. You were part of that." I held my ground. "You told me I wasn't family." He scoffed, stepped back like I'd slapped him. "That wasn't me, that was Erica. And it was a joke. You're blowing this out of proportion." "You didn't say anything to stop her." "I didn't think I needed to. I figured you'd understand." I reached behind the door and handed him a folded sheet of paper. The agreement from 7 years ago. The land use deal we discussed but never formalized. His signature line still blank, mine the only one filled in. He stared at it. "You never signed." This was always conditional. He opened his mouth again, but I closed the door before he could speak. He didn't knock again. Inside, I exhaled and placed the spare copies back in their folder. There were 28 days left. By the end of the week, I heard Erica had called nearly every branch of the family tree. "She's evicting us," she told them, "over a dinner misunderstanding. Can you believe that?" She painted it in pastels, hurt feelings, confusion, my sudden cruelty. She made it sound like I'd snapped without warning, like this had all come from nowhere. But they'd all been at that table. They remembered the tray of steaks, the glossy dessert box, the missing plate. I didn't respond. Not to the calls, not to the emails, not to the vague posts Erica made online about entitled elders and ungrateful relatives. Instead, I weeded the back garden and mulched the rose bed. I called the zoning office, asked about property lines, setbacks, and demolition permits. I called a contractor recommended by Lynn. The world didn't end, and quietly, without ceremony, people began reaching out. First was Erica's niece, Elise. Just a message. I always wondered why she acted that way toward you. I'm sorry. Then Erica's cousin, Dana, a text. She's not the victim she pretends to be. I saw how she spoke to you. It wasn't okay. I didn't write back to most of them. I wasn't looking for allies, just space. But I saved the messages. For a long time, I'd wondered if I was the only one who saw it, who felt it. Turns out I wasn't. I spent the next morning walking the lot, measuring with old stakes and twine. The land felt different now, not heavy, not burdened, just open. Calvin hadn't returned. Erica had stopped texting. The silence for once felt earned. When the contractor arrived that afternoon, I pointed to the back corner of the property and explained what I had in mind. He nodded, made notes, asked about budget. I gave him a firm number. He said it was doable. We shook hands. Then I walked back inside, rinsed my hands in the sink, and sat at the table where I'd first opened the deed. 25 days remained. He came just after sunset. No knock this time, just the soft shuffle of feet on the porch, followed by a hesitant tap on the frame. I opened the door and found him standing there, hands in his pockets, shoulders rounded. "Can I sit?" he asked. I gestured to the porch chair, not warmly, not coldly, just enough. He sat with a sigh, like he'd been carrying weight too long. I waited. "I didn't know she was going to say that," he began, voice low. "I didn't know she planned to leave you out." I didn't answer. I wasn't thinking. I should have stopped her. I should have said something. Still, I stayed quiet. "I just wanted a quiet life," he said, looking out at the yard. "No fights, no tension, just peace." "You could have had one," I replied. He flinched, not from the words, but from their truth. His eyes swept over the fence line, the hedges, the neat edges of the garden, like he was already saying goodbye to it. He cleared his throat. "She's been packing slowly. Still thinks you'll change your mind." "I won't." He nodded. "I know." The silence settled, not sharp this time, just final. "I'm sorry," he said after a while. I looked at him, really looked. "I believe you," I said. He turned to me, hopeful. "But that doesn't change what happened or what comes next." He nodded again, slower this time. I didn't reach for his hand. I didn't offer tea. Some things can be spoken without being softened. He sat for a few more minutes, then stood. "I guess I'll see you when it's time," he said. "You know where the line is?" I replied. He hesitated, like he might say more, but instead he walked down the steps, got in his car, and pulled away without looking back. Inside, I turned off the porch light. 21 days. The trucks came early. No warning, no drama. Just the sound of tires on gravel and doors sliding open. I watched from the kitchen window as Calvin directed the movers. He looked thinner somehow, worn down in the shoulders. Erica didn't come. I wasn't surprised. He kept his eyes low, his voice quiet. Boxes moved from the house to the truck in steady rhythm. Books, framed prints, lamps, I recognized some of them. Gifts I'd once wrapped. He knocked gently when it was time. I opened the door. We didn't speak right away. "There are a few documents," he said, holding out a clipboard. "Transfer of contents, address update, the usual." I took the pen, signed where needed, initialed where it asked. There was nothing left to say. The house wasn't mine. Not anymore. Not technically. But the soil it sat on, the roots beneath it, the name on the parcel registry, those were mine again. I stepped outside as they packed the last box. Calvin nodded to the driver. The engine hummed to life. I stood at the edge of the porch and watched them pull away. No tears, no shouting, just distance widening with each turn of the wheels. I stayed there a while, breathing in the quiet. Later that afternoon, I met with the coordinator from the local women's co-op. She brought a binder of plans: raised beds, pollinator rows, compost rotation. "We'd only need the west half," she said. "We can bring our own tools, our own soil, and the produce goes to the shelters in town." I said yes, signed a new agreement, one with real signatures, real intent. The land had always been meant for growing. The sun dipped lower. I stood at the edge of the yard and imagined rows of green, lines drawn not in fences but in seeds, Not a property line, just a beginning. 3 months passed like wind through turning leaves. By mid-October, the garden had taken shape. Rows of kale, clusters of tomatoes, small sunflowers still reaching despite the cooler days. I rented a canopy and strung lights from the back porch to the maple tree. It wasn't fancy, but it didn't need to be. The table was long and mismatched, made of 2 old folding tables pushed together and covered with a linen cloth. People came early. Lynn brought pumpkin bread, still warm from her oven. Celia, who once took my bakery class at the community center, brought soup in a heavy ceramic pot. One neighbor brought a thermos of cider. Another, a rescue dog with a wagging tail and a name I forgot twice before it finally stuck. Milo. No place cards, no whispered rankings, just chairs. Enough for anyone who showed up. And at the center of the table, a place set for me, my plate, my glass, my folded napkin. Not out of obligation, but because it was mine. I didn't cook everything, but I did bake the apple tart. The scent of cinnamon and brown butter filled the space before I even opened the box. Someone made a toast. I don't remember the words, only that people clinked glasses and no one looked down when they spoke. We passed dishes without hesitation. No one was left out. The food was simple. The laughter was loud. When the sun dipped low and the wind picked up, someone added a scarf around my shoulders. I don't know who. It didn't matter. We lingered long after the plates were cleared. Some people helped fold chairs. Others stayed to talk about planting garlic for winter. The lights stayed on as the last guests left. I walked through the yard slowly, collecting empty mugs and napkins. The land felt warm beneath my feet, even in the chill. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I'd borrowed anything. I locked the door behind me and turned off the porch light.